What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Doom Patrol Season 1 Episode 2, titled Donkey Patrol. The episode begins with a previously on, but this show does it so differently. Obviously, this is the first episode where there was an episode before it to talk about for the recap at the beginning of the episode, which every show does, but this episode did it completely different, where Mr. Nobody, the guy who keeps on fourth wall breaking throughout this show already, he recaps the previous episode, and I really like that. I like all the fourth wall breaking for Mr. Nobody. It's actually really funny. Like, there's one scene in this episode in the beginning where he mentions DC streaming service. It was just such a funny moment. Mr. Nobody is, or has the potential to be, a great villain this season. He's been so good in these two episodes. Like, in the latter half of this episode, he has a whole storyline with Cyborg and Mr. Negative and Elastigirl, and it is great. I'll go over that later, but the beginning of the episode with the previously on, it's so good, like how they're doing everything in this show. But anyway, this episode continued where episode 1 left off, which episode 1 did have a pretty insane ending, especially for like a first episode of a show where a black hole is created in the middle of the town by the main villain. I mean, it's an insane ending to a first episode, and this episode continued it rather well, where the whole town, including Crazy Jane and the Chief, both got, or all got, sucked into the wormhole, and the rest of the episode was a normal episode up until the whole thing with the donkey. But like, they introduced Cyborg onto the team. I didn't really think how they can do that with the whole town being stuck into a wormhole, and you also have a new character joining the team and being introduced. It's pretty insane how they did that. Cyborg himself, I expected to like him a lot less than I actually did, just because the design on the posters, I didn't like it that much, but I do really like this version of Cyborg. He's even probably going to get an upgrade, as we see in like the painting at the end of this episode, which is probably foreshadowing the season finale or something like this, where Cyborg does look a little bit different and does look very upgraded, and his father even says that he can give him an upgrade. But I liked Cyborg a lot in this episode, despite the fact that his design it leaves a lot to be desired. But again, this is just a prototype, even though he has been Cyborg for like at least 5 years, which is pretty insane how long he's been Cyborg for. But still, I do really like Cyborg. I think the actor does a pretty great job in the role. I think his powers look really cool, and the way he uses the machine at the beginning, the ATM, it's really cool, and I like his abilities in this episode, and I have no doubt he's going to be used well in the show as well. He's a pretty great addition to the team, even though I would rather he be on the Teen Titans, even the Justice League, preferably the Titans at this point. He does definitely work on the Doom Patrol, as he has a past with the Chief, and he is a circus freak like the rest of the Doom Patrol, like they keep on mentioning on this show. But after the whole black hole thing happened in the episode and the whole town disappeared, Robot Man obviously went crazy, and that definitely made a lot of sense. But Elasti-Woman or Elastigirl, whatever you want to call her, and Negative Man's reactions don't really seem to work in this episode, just because they don't really care about the town, it seems, or even the Chief. They don't really have much of a reaction to what's going on, and that part I didn't love. I don't think they expressed well how they reacted to all of this. It just seemed like it was a normal Friday to them, when obviously it definitely wasn't. I do like the Mr. Negative whole storyline where he's trying to leave town, and the negative part of him isn't letting him, which in the comics I'm pretty sure he just puts his consciousness into a being of pure energy. Well, here it seems to be two different beings. They do make a lot of changes to these characters, which are probably for the better for the most part. I just really like this montage of him trying to leave the town and the negative part of him not letting him, and it definitely is a lot of fun. It's really funny as well. But then they go back into the manor of the show. Obviously goes back to the manor to show Cyborg joining the team. He's kind of joining the team in this episode. He just really stopped by to see what's going on and also help them out. But there was also this whole during that, there was this whole scene where Crazy Jane, Cyborg, and Robot Man are talking. Crazy Jane, I think that she's very interesting. A lot of people draw comparisons to Legion. I don't watch the show, so I'm not 100% sure about that. But I do think that the actress who plays Crazy Jane is really good in the role. Like in this episode in particular, when she's switching between all of her personalities, she does a great job in convincing me, at least, that they're completely different people. I mean, she has 64 different personalities, so that's a lot of characters in one to juggle on the show, and I'm pretty sure they're doing a pretty great job so far, and the actress herself is doing a great job as well. It's just very interesting to see all these different personalities coming out of the same person and feeling like they're actually different people. But speaking of Crazy Jane, there's a big part of the episode where Robot Man is investigating Crazy Jane to find out what she's about, and there's a whole investigation, or the whole interrogation from the chief interrogating Crazy Jane about like her powers and what she can do and all that, and how her powers work. And I thought that was very interesting, and it was very intense how Cyborg was talking to Crazy Jane, Robot Man was investigating all this, and then obviously they do this a lot, but I think it worked a lot here, where somebody comes to the conclusion that characters like Insane are very powerful, and then the other character who's talking to that character gets to that character, the crazy insane one, to the point where they are crazy and insane. That obviously happened in this episode. The tension building up in that whole scene, I do think worked really well. And then Cyborg and Robot Man both fought Crazy Jane in a pretty great fight scene. It wasn't really long, but for the most part it's also shown in the background, but even when it wasn't shown, it was a lot of fun when they were showing that. I really like how they're handling basically everything in the show, and that's definitely one of it. And Crazy Jane's whole aspect, like the whole thing of her character, I do think I'm very interested in all of that. But all of that leads into Cyborg and Negative Man and Elasti-Woman investigate this donkey, find out it's a whole door to another dimension that they have to open with a key. It would have been cool for them to like find a key or something, but anyway, they get sucked in, and this whole thing is so weird and insane, and they're doing an insanely good job with just how weird this entire thing is. So different from anything I've seen before, really. I mean, Mr. Nobody's abilities and powers just bring up some insane, crazy, weird moments, and I really love it. But that leads to Cyborg, Negative Man, and Elasti-Woman going into the donkey, which leads to probably the best sequence of events ever from not only this show, but the entire universe, which includes the first season of Titans as well, where Cyborg and Negative Man and Elasti-Woman are being tormented by Mr. Nobody, where Cyborg is reliving his tragic origin story. Negative Man and Elasti-Woman are reliving the experiences that they had before they became freaks and after those accidents, where Negative Man, or Larry Trainer, was a pilot and Rita Farr was an actress. And I think this whole sequence of events was insanely good. Mr. Nobody's overall his voiceover in these things, he's such a great villain in these moments. I think Alan Tudyk does an incredible job with the voiceover work in the show. The guy who plays Mr. Nobody, I think he's so good as the villain of this show. And this whole sequence of events where he's tormenting the Doom Patrol with Cyborg, Negative Man, and Elasti-Woman, he just does such an incredible job. This whole sequence of events is so intense and does such a great job at, first of all, showing Cyborg's tragic origin story as well, because when I see Cyborg, like with his metallic look and all, it doesn't seem like he was that injured or that insanely broken by what turned him into Cyborg, because he only has metal on his eye and like that part of his face and a little bit on his hand, and we don't even see it, but on his leg as well. But this accident he was in the origin story, it looks bad. I mean, it looks insanely bad, even for how little Cyborg he is in the present day. It looks insanely bad. How I mean, not bad as a negative thing, but bad as in a good thing, where the accident made him look like he was basically dead, and very realistic how he can actually be saved from that and look like the Cyborg he is now. And I think they did a pretty great job with his whole tragic origin story and his motivation as well, which is connected to his mother, which a lot of superheroes have dead mothers, which fuel them becoming superheroes. That's not really a thing for Cyborg usually, but they're changing it up because it does usually work. Even though it is cliche at this point, it does work for basically every superhero, like Batman or Superman or Spider-Man, the biggest superheroes ever. They have dead mothers, and Cyborg is another one, and that's basically his main motivation. I think they did a great job with his whole origin story, showing how he became Cyborg and his motivation for becoming Cyborg as well. As for Negative Man and Elasti-Woman, I loved seeing them relive what gave them so much joy back before they were in these accidents, dealing with the fact that this whole thing isn't real. I think the best part of this whole sequence of events was Alan Tudyk's voiceover. He does such an incredible job at being such an insane and menacing villain without ever really appearing for more than a second, because his CGI probably does cost a lot of money. I don't think it looks bad at all. It just does look very CGI for the most part, and I don't think that that's a bad thing either. I think he does definitely definitely look very, very cool in this show, but for the most part it's just a voiceover, and he does such a great job with that voiceover. I love this whole sequence of events with Cyborg, Negative Man, Elastigirl, and Mr. Nobody, and it's probably the best thing to come out of DC Universe, minus things from Young Justice, but the best thing to come out of the Titans verse with Doom Patrol and Titans, probably in the entirety of the universe. It's just an insanely good sequence of events, so intense, making it basically all four of the characters that are present in the storyline so much better than they were before, and making Cyborg a good character because we haven't really seen him before, like we haven't at all seen him before this episode, and this whole sequence of events made me really, really like Cyborg as a character. But after that whole thing, all of the Doom Patrol members are spit out by the donkey, and it seems like Mr. Nobody is for some reason scared of the Doom Patrol, even though he's basically God, he's basically all-powerful, he can do anything, and the Doom Patrol aren't exactly the most powerful superheroes. I mean, Elastigirl basically doesn't have any superpowers, she could just turn into sludge at this point, and Negative Man has no control over his powers, Robot Man is just a little bit more strong than a normal person. Cyborg definitely has a hold on his powers, and it feels like he's going to be like the leader of this team, which I do like, but I also don't really like because Cyborg's not even a member of this team in the comics. It feels weird for him to be the leader, and I think Robot Man or the Chief, if he's present at any given episode, he should probably be the leader, but Cyborg is definitely the most experienced out of the Doom Patrol members, so that definitely would work. But back to Mr. Nobody, there's some reason why he's scared of the Doom Patrol, and we're gonna find out in the next 13 episodes of the show, and I'm actually very excited because the first 2 episodes of the show are just so good, and this episode is even better than the last. You also had like a Flash reference in this episode, which was pretty awesome. I love how they just subtly reference the very, very major members of the Justice League. Like they subtly reference Wonder Woman and Superman on Titans. They even showed Batman a little bit, like in the shadows, and the Flash in this episode of Doom Patrol. But in conclusion, I do think that this is a step up from the first episode, which is saying a lot because the first episode was a great beginning, a great start to what looks like to be an incredible TV show in Doom Patrol. But I will give this episode a 9.9 out of 10. What do you think about the episode? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.